The other thing I want to clarify here is something that I think is very misunderstood in the common mind of the world, which is, what is pain exactly? Hi, I'm Michael Westgate. Thank you for joining me. I've helped people with chronic pain for over 2 decades. I aim to help you say goodbye to pain and hello to a fully lived life. For those of us that have challenges, which is everyone here, the goal is to use a practice as a portal, or as a kind of as a way of exercising your nervous system towards what you would rather have. So we want to be able to use these practices to shift how our nervous system behaves in any given situation so that we are better off than we usually are. And just so everyone knows, because I'm teaching this doesn't mean that I've got it all figured out and I never have a bad day. But what does mean is these things have brought me really far from where I used to be. I have some witnesses to that, by the way. And that my life is better than I've ever thought it could be. And it continues to improve because of these sorts of exercises. And what we're covering currently, and this is going to go on for a number of months, is somatic experience exercises. And the founder or the discoverer of these is Dr. Peter Levine. In this particular series, I'm actually including work that he did with Dr. Maggie Phillips, because I really found those helpful. Dr. Levine's work is an absolute essential piece to getting well if you've been challenged with your health or stress regulation in some way. The other thing I want to clarify here is something that I think is very misunderstood in the common mind of the world, which is, what is pain exactly? Because here's what's misunderstood. Most people think that pain is only like when you sprain your ankle. But if all of us are really clear about, suffering, so let's go kind of towards the Buddhist direction. Any form of suffering is pain. A loss of a friend, or, the death of a loved one, even the loss of a dream, right? I mean, imagine if you have this dream, you're going to be an artist or a musician, or maybe even a doctor or a lawyer, and it falls apart. That's painful. It's hard. I mean, all of us can relate to that, I think. And mental illness is pain. And I think anyone that's ever been depressed for any period of time or any other mental challenge would tell you that's pretty damn uncomfortable. So I think that would count as pain as well. So basically the reason why these exercises, which are designed for pain relief, actually really relate to all kinds of distress. And autoimmune disease is another example, which is anyone who has autoimmune, which I do. Luckily, it's in remission because of the practices like these. It sucks. I mean, it depends on what kind you have, but your joints hurt, you have brain fog, your stomach doesn't do well with food, maybe you can't sleep. I mean, it's a real joy. So that's another form of pain. And then the issue here, too, is how would you apply these practices in your life? So I'm going to cover that a little bit before we start, because it's so relevant. So let me give you an outline. I'm going to be giving this sort of outline over and over again because it's good to hear over and over so that it can stick in one's mind and body. What you want to do is identify a pattern in your life that you don't like and that you feel is detrimental to your overall wellness. And you might want to do that right now. Like, think about it. What do I do habitually, or how I respond, that kind of derails my life? And maybe even over and over again. And here's some examples. Trouble resting, relaxing or sleeping. Maybe there's a family member that you react to in a way that you regret later. You don't really feel good about yourself, but it's hard to help yourself from being that way. Maybe when you have this situation where someone is violating your boundaries, being selfish, being pushy, but you can't speak up, you freeze. Like and then later you're like, why didn't I say something? That would be a great example. Another one would be when you're stressed out, you overeat. Or when you're stressed out, you overspend or gamble or something equally as unhelpful for your long-term wellness in your life. So what I'm recommending is that you use these techniques that I'm teaching, and I'm not really attached to which one you use, by the way. The reason I'm creating a catalog of practices is because my personal experience and professional experience is that everyone has a different resonance with certain exercises. And some, when you find the ones that work for you, you'll notice that it's easier to get to them than the others, and that they seem to help you more than the others. I also recommend, by the way, that you have a toolbox instead of just one, because I've discovered that some exercises work sometimes or for certain situations and not others. I've also discovered that when I do these practices over time, they change in terms of how they affect me, usually for the better. But the other thing I've discovered is some exercises I tried initially, which I couldn't use for many, who knows why. There's all kinds of reasons. Now I can. So there's this kind of transformation that happens over time that may make you able to use things that didn't work before. So keep that an open mind there. But what you really want to find is what I call jokingly your ice bath. Now, the reason I say that is because I discovered that ice baths help me tremendously. Like, it's just incredible how much they help me. And I'm aware that not everyone wants to do that for many reasons, and I'm not attached to that. But what I want for all of you is to find practices that help bring you back down to earth when you go into the stratosphere or into shutdown, where you're collapsed and have no energy and you're frozen. Those sorts of things. You want things to help you bring out of those places, to disrupt that pattern, and ones that you're willing and able to do. Because that's the other thing, is that it's like this old joke. Anger management techniques are great until you get angry, right? So the issue here is that you want to practice when you don't need them. And if you do that enough, you might actually be able to use it while you're triggered. Usually while is a little hard. But if nothing else, afterwards, so you can recover quicker and you can get grounded again and get back into yourself in a good way. And then you're going to show up better in the world. And remember this, this is an old adage, but it's absolutely the case, is that you become what you practice. So the more time you are able to commit towards your wellness in this way, in the spirit of what I'm saying, the more likely you're going to have a shift in your health and your experience of life. And I don't think it's any mystery to anyone when I say this. Practicing towards one's wellness is one of the hardest things to get people to do. My goodness. I mean, it's amazing how they almost like run for their life from it. And I'm going to explain to you why that is. The reason for that is because when we have shocks in our life, when we are overwhelmed by our circumstances, what happens is that we have experiences that show up as body sensations. And the body sensations are so unbearable that we actually cut ourselves off from that part of our body or whole body, and we distract ourselves in 20,000 different flavors of ways that each of us has a different way of doing that. And so the body sensations are so overwhelming that we don't think we can survive them at the time. And that may be true, by the way. So if all of us do this to some degree, some more than others, but if you did it, it's not a failure. What it is, it's a survival strategy. And at the time, it was all that you had. You didn't have the resources to do anything else, or you would have done them. And so what that does is it basically is like putting a bookmark on an experience that you didn't successfully navigate. And when you don't successfully navigate an experience, it becomes unresolved, and it becomes something that your subconscious system, what I call your primal guardian, which is the brain in your gut, insists that you must get to eventually. And the longer you don't get to it, the louder the symptoms become. So what symptoms are in the body, pain, illness, is primarily, and it's not the only thing, but it's primarily unresolved experiences that are screaming for attention. And the longer you ignore them, the louder they get. So what they need is to be attended to in a certain way that allows your nervous system to find a solution to that thing that didn't go well. Think of it as like a mythological story where, in the myths that we like, here's typically what happens. The hero faces a danger like a dragon. The hero defeats the dragon or tames it or something similar. And then the hero is stronger and more capable and is loved by society and, gets the maiden or whatever, So there's this prize at the end. But when we have experiences that overwhelm us, it's a fairy tale that says, and then the dragon ate me. Or then the dragon, breathed fire in me and I was burnt to a crisp. Not a great thing for the nervous system to have as the story. Very disturbing, very unsettling. So what we have to do is to re-engage with the story. But here's the clincher. It means we have to go back to those feelings of overwhelm, which is the last thing anyone wants to do because they're so awful. And the only way we can do that is to build resources within ourselves through, practices like I'm telling you about. If you're lucky enough to find a therapy and a therapist that you can work with, that's a great thing as well. And then there's other things like neurofeedback. Some people are using psychedelics to help with this, which the literature is very positive about. I have to tell you, amazingly positive about what that can do in the right circumstances. And some people use, religious practices to help them. I have no addiction to any approach. What I do know, though, is that to be able to face that dragon that burned you in the past, you have to gather more resources than you've had before. And once you have that, you'll be able to gradually, so that's the other thing I want to explain, gradually re-engage with the dragon that burned you so that you can rewrite the story and release that unresolved energy in your body. And that unresolved energy then can be used for forward movement towards a goal, being more present with the people you love, doing outrageous things like maybe just sitting in the park and enjoying the fact that it's a nice day. Just don't tell anyone about that because you'll get in trouble. So that's why we're doing all this. That's the goal. The goal is to strengthen you so that you're able to process that which took you down in the past, at least metaphorically, and that you can kind of expand yourself into a bigger, stronger, more embodied person and more integrated person too. Because the other thing that happens is when we're overwhelmed, we get fragmented. But literally fragmented, like you're not in total connection with like you become parts instead of a whole. And so we're reclaiming in this work, we're helping reclaim the connections that were lost, these resources. So if you go to michaelwestgate.com, you have the vagal nerve exercise column. And in this column, I already have some of the things we've done before in here. The guided body scan, pendulation exercise, box breath, and this is a combination of 3 right here. There's a 10-minute body awareness meditation, which deep pressure therapy, which I highly recommend for people, especially with anxiety issues, foam roller stuff, and then I talk about practices that have to do with enjoying beauty, being in nature. This is only going to get more expansive, and eventually we're going to categorize things very, very specifically so it's easier to kind of sort what you would try. If you found this content helpful, please like and subscribe. You can look forward to more videos about how to overcome chronic illness and chronic pain.